She was sitting in my chair when I got to work, just typing, like she'd been there all night. No lights on, no jacket, no ID badge. I stood in the doorway for a second, confused. The building shouldn't have even been unlocked yet. I said, "Hey, I think you're in my seat." She looked up, smiled, and said, "Oh, I know. I just wanted you to get a head start." Then she stood and walked to the next cube over, like it had been hers all along. That moment stuck with me, not because she was rude. She wasn't. It was the way she said it, like she already knew exactly how I'd react. Her name was Maya. They said she was a temp, brought in to help with our claims backlog. I work in processing for a major insurance company, the kind of place where you need a badge to enter every hallway, let alone the floor. But Maya was logged in, working, and already finishing other people's tickets before we even sat down. The weird part was, she was working out of the temp cube next to mine, and the first claim she completed was mine, one I hadn't even started. She said she found it in the shared queue and thought it had been abandoned, but it was literally assigned to me that morning. I didn't make a big deal out of it. There was more than enough work to go around, but it bugged me. Later that afternoon, I was reviewing a high-dollar claim and spotted a weird code mismatch. When I went to correct it, it had already been fixed, and the timestamp showed the change happened 10 minutes before I even opened the file. I checked the logs. Maya had touched the file. It wasn't assigned to her, and it wasn't in her queue. She just went in and cleaned it up like she knew I'd miss it. That's when I realized she wasn't just doing her own work. She was watching ours too. By the end of that first day, she had done more claims than anyone else on the team. Fast, perfect formatting, no errors. But there were little things that stood out. She used macros that only our team knew about. She even color-coded her spreadsheet tabs exactly how our manager likes it. When I asked her how long she'd been doing claims work, she just said, "Long enough," and smiled. The second day, she beat me to work again. I got in early just to check. 6:47 a.m. Her monitor was already on, and she had a half-empty coffee cup from the corner shop that doesn't open until 7. I joked, "You sleep here or something?" And she said, "You'd be surprised how much you can get done when no one's watching." I wasn't sure what that meant, but the way she said it wasn't funny. Our supervisor, Carla, started assigning Maya high-priority claims, the kind that usually go to senior reps. One morning, I noticed Maya had access to our shared drive, where we keep internal cheat sheets and policy exceptions, stuff no temp should be able to see. I asked Carla about it, and she just blinked and said, "I didn't give her that." Then she changed the subject. Later that week, I went to pull a specific claim and saw it was already marked complete, but it had only been submitted minutes earlier. I looked around. Maya was on a personal call with her headset in, talking quietly and scrolling through a spreadsheet. The claim she completed had my notes in it. Not just work-related notes. Things I jotted for myself, like check address, W. Marcus, maybe typo. Stuff that never leaves my scratch pad. On Thursday, one of the other reps passed me in the hallway and nodded toward Maya's cube. "She's a little intense, huh?" he said. I asked what he meant. He shrugged. I caught her staring at my screen earlier. Didn't even look away when I noticed. Just smiled and walked off. I didn't say anything, but it stayed with me. I wasn't the only one getting weird vibes. On Friday, I stayed late to catch up. Most people had gone home, and I was just wrapping up when I walked past Maya's cube and saw her monitor was off. But she was still sitting there, typing steadily. I stopped. She wasn't reacting to anything on screen. just going through the motions like her fingers had muscle memory. When she noticed me watching, she didn't flinch. She just said, "Some of us work better when it's quiet." Then she stood up and walked out, leaving the screen dark and the chair spinning. That night, I mentioned Maya to a friend of mine who's a supervisor in another department. Off the record, I asked if she could check what agency Maya came from. She said she'd make a call in the morning and get back to me. The next day, she sent me a message. "Weird. The agency says they haven't placed anyone by that name at your site. No record of her at all." Monday morning, her cube was empty. No belongings. Nothing in the trash. I asked Carla if she was out sick, and she just said she wrapped up Friday. Said the backlog was under control. She didn't say who told her that. Later that day, I overheard someone from another team say IT had already disabled Maya's login, but nobody could say who requested it. A week later, my friend, the one in management who checked the agency records, told me audit had flagged Maya during a badge access review. Apparently, she'd been scanning into the building well before it opened, sometimes an hour early, sometimes two, but security was never alerted, because the badge registered as valid. She added, "They're pulling old video now. Something about it doesn't line up." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. But I kept thinking about what Maya told me that second morning, when I asked if she slept there. "You'd be surprised," she said, "how much you can get done when no one's watching." There was a live camera feed of the conference room upstairs, and at 2:12 a.m., we saw someone sitting at the table. The only problem was, no one should have been in the building, and security said the floor was empty. "My name's David. I work in commercial leasing. Our firm rents out office space in a 5-story building just outside the city, and we manage most of the upper floors ourselves. I'm usually out meeting clients, but every Friday I'm assigned to cover the front desk, since the admin goes remote. It's always dead quiet after 5 p.m. Most companies in the building do a hybrid schedule, and no one sticks around late. There's a big glass conference room on 5, and our company installed a camera in there after one of the night cleaners said the lights kept turning on and off by themselves. They wanted to see if it was motion triggered or if someone was messing with the automation settings. The camera runs 24/7 and feeds into a tablet at the front desk, mounted just under the visitor check-in screen. The first time I noticed it, the room was completely dark except for the blue glow of the parking lot through the windows. Empty table, 10 chairs pushed in. I didn't think anything of it. But the next Friday, something strange caught my eye. Just a flicker, like movement across the glass. I glanced up, but the room looked the same. I figured it was glare from a headlight outside. Then a few minutes later, I saw something else. One of the chairs had shifted slightly. Not pulled out completely, but turned a few degrees, like someone had sat down and got up. I double-checked the time. 6:48 p.m. No one was booked for that space, and I hadn't seen anyone go upstairs. That Monday, I asked Jenna from HR if they'd had a last-minute meeting. She looked confused. Said the only people with keycard access after 6 were our building manager, cleaning crew, and the overnight security guard. She pulled up the booking log just to be sure. The room hadn't been reserved since Wednesday. The next Friday, I decided to keep an eye on the feed. Around 7:20 p.m., the lights turned on by themselves. I watched closely. Nothing happened for almost 2 minutes. Then, just as I leaned away from the screen, a figure walked into frame. A man in a suit. He sat at the table like he belonged there. No papers, no laptop. He just sat perfectly still, facing the camera. I thought maybe it was one of the partners staying late. But when I called up to the 5th floor, no one picked up. So I called the main building security line. They told me no motion had triggered the floor sensors, and no one had badged in since 5:11 p.m. I told them to check the cameras from the hallway outside the room. 5 minutes later, they called back and said the footage showed the room completely empty. It must be a delayed feed, the guy said, probably frozen. But I was still watching the man sitting there. He hadn't moved once. A few minutes later, he finally did. He turned slightly in his chair and looked at the camera. Not directly into it, but just left of center, like he was watching me watch him. I unplugged the tablet from the dock and brought it into our director's office. When she saw it, her face went pale. She said she recognized him. She pulled up an old onboarding photo from 5 years ago. His name was Alex, and he used to work in acquisitions. He'd quit suddenly after a complaint was filed, but no one ever confirmed what it was about. She said the complaint came from a woman who used to work our front desk, the same desk I'd been covering on Fridays. I asked her where Alex worked now. She said he didn't. He died last year. Heart attack. Right there in the conference room. That same chair at the end of the table. She had the building team remove the camera from the tablet that night. But the strangest thing is, every time I walk by the conference room now, the lights turn on. And the chair at the end of the table is always just slightly turned, like someone's waiting for me to sit down. Last week I stayed a little later than usual. I had to prep some leasing packets for a Monday presentation, and the director had already left. It was almost 8:30 when I started shutting things down. The elevators had already gone into night mode. The only lights left on were at reception and the conference room upstairs. I remember standing there with my coat half on, staring at the empty screen on the tablet. The feed was still unplugged. The room should have been dark, but I had that weird crawling feeling like someone was still up there, watching. Then I heard a faint click from the front desk tablet, even though it was unplugged. Just a soft noise, like the tablet had turned on again by itself. I didn't check it. I didn't want to. But as I walked out through the lobby, I passed the main monitor that shows all building cameras on a loop. And for just a second, before it cycled to the next frame, I swear I saw the man from the conference room, standing in the hallway outside my office. He showed up right in the middle of our worst outage all year. Said he was from corporate IT, clipboard, badge, confident like he belonged. But nobody recognized him. And the moment he stepped into the server room, things started getting weird. My name's Erica, and I work tech support at a regional insurance branch. Nothing fancy, I just handle problems when people can't log in or the system goes down. That day, I was working the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift alone, while our regular system admin, Anthony, was out on vacation. Around 6:30, things started breaking. People couldn't sign in, files weren't opening, and half our tools crashed at once. The server room is on the lower level, past the supply corridor, behind a locked double door. Normally, only Anthony or the building engineer could get in. But the guy who showed up walked straight up like he belonged. Said he was sent from the main office in Alpharetta. He wore one of those old blue and gray company lanyards, and his badge said James L., with some kind of contractor ID on it. He didn't ask questions or explain much. Just said, "I'm here to get you back online," and held up a clipboard. It had a printed list of server names. Most looked familiar, but a few didn't. I pointed that out, and he said, "They're old ones. That's why I'm here." He went into the server room without needing help, and about 15 minutes later, things started coming back online. Not everything, but enough that we could breathe again. At the time, I was just relieved. I didn't stop to wonder why he hadn't badged in or why nobody had given us a heads up he was coming. About an hour later, he came out sweating through his collar and said, "I've done what I can. The rest should reset overnight." Then he handed me a yellow sticky note with 3 short commands written on it and told me not to run them until morning. I asked if he needed me to sign anything or log his visit. He just shook his head and said, "This one's off the books." Later that night, I called our regional IT director to check in. She said she hadn't sent anyone. She sounded confused, then annoyed, and said she'd call me back, but she never did. I checked the building's badge logs. No record of a James L. coming in. Nothing at all from that hour. The next morning, I came in early. The first sticky note was still on my monitor, right where I'd left it. But now there was a second one sitting next to my keyboard. Same yellow paper, same handwriting. It said, "Don't undo anything. It's already done." I logged into the system to see what had changed, and that's when it got worse. 3 of our internal servers had been renamed, locked down, and set to use passwords nobody had. One of them had a brand new admin account. None of us could get into it. I called our lead engineer and he just said, "That shouldn't even be possible." Even the backups didn't work. The automatic ones we take every few hours were all corrupted, like something wiped them and replaced them with junk. We reached out to corporate. They escalated it, but no one admitted to sending anyone, and no one named James L. had ever been on contract with us. The security cameras didn't show anyone coming through the front or side doors that night. We replaced the systems, started fresh, but one thing hasn't gone away. There's still a hidden log file that pings our network every 3 hours from a server labeled Archive Restore 3. That machine doesn't exist anymore. We've wiped it 4 times. Every time it comes back. And here's what keeps me up at night. The sticky note with the 3 commands. I never ran them. But when I checked the system logs, they'd already been typed in, hours before I got in, from my workstation. And every Monday at 6:33 p.m., same time the outage started. We find a new sticky note on the server room floor. Same handwriting, same yellow paper. The last one said, "You didn't listen."